Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson, and it's such a pleasure to have you here today. This is another survivor story, and I just love these. I love to hear the positive direction that people are taking their life now after having to deal with this nightmare of covert narcissism. So today I have a guest with us. His name is Todd, and it's a pleasure to have you here, Todd. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Okay. And Todd, thank you for volunteering your time here for this audience and for being here and sharing your story.
Sure. You're welcome.
Todd, how long have you been dealing with covert narcissism? Can you give us a snapshot of what brought you to this world?
Yeah, I think, it's funny. My mother's passed, and, the past is the past. But I do suspect that she may have primed me for the covert narcissism abuse and, linking up with a covert narcissist. But I was married to one. So we were together for a total of 20 years, and we were married for 15.
Wow. Okay. Your mom primed you for this, and I love that that reflection back in the past. And without diving in too deep there, in what way do you think that set you up for this?
There was definitely a lot of unresolved trauma with her, which I know for certain. And the context is just that, I was the one. I was the way for her to kind of vent and get that out, I guess, in summary. And then it came out in ways of, just being treated lesser than my siblings and other people in the house. I was at times just blankly told that I was not a good person, and these kinds of things. And then just all the, I don't know. I just, after learning from you, frankly, and other reading I've done, all the long list of abuse that we suffer with a narcissist, a lot of those things were ways that my mother would treat me. So
I really appreciate you sharing that, and I know I kind of put you on the spot with that question, so okay. I do apologize for that. But it's and your answer was perfect in that. It really expresses how our childhood, the way we're handled and treated in childhood, kind of normalizes this way of being treated then in adulthood. And so we don't see it as abusive behavior. We kind of just normalize that we're being, as you put it, we're being treated less than. And I think that's a perfect way to put that. And I love your description of it. And I'm sorry that you dealt with that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So you were in a marriage then being treated the same way, but didn't know it. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. Well, and at some point, I started to know it, but like you said, it was normalized for me, right? So it wasn't like I just accepted it, and so, yeah, there just came a point where, I just kind of woke up.
Do you remember that day that you woke up? What triggered that?
Yeah, sure. So, I think it's a number. There are a number of things. So, one, I think I've always kind of felt like something was a bit wrong, and that's why, again, I think my mother's treatment of me was really, problematic and a challenge, and something that I ultimately had to confront and overcome. And then with my wife at the time, I was just deeply unhappy, and I found that I kept trying to do things. At first, I didn't realize that I was doing them to try to appease her, and then further along, I mean, this is 15 years or 20 years of being together, right? So 15 years of being married. I started to realize, okay, I'm definitely trying to do these things. We'll be happier, right? But it was really her happiness. I was able to find my happiness and joy and things. But I would say 2020 was a big mark. Being trapped in the house, right?
Yeah, that was a big deal for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And, no breaks, nowhere to hide, right? And I found that I didn't need to hide. But I was, well, I was hiding. I ended up hiding, right, from this abuse and trying to kind of get away from it. So I started to realize that, frankly, another piece is I attained sobriety. So that was a big step for me. I found that I was using alcohol and drugs to mask and to escape instead of being able to kind of confront.
It was
So that
another
was a
form of hiding.
yeah, exactly. It was a way for me to comfort myself and so once I stopped that, so I stopped that in 2021. So that's been about 3.5 years. That was a step in allowing me to really start to achieve clarity,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
And I could go to the point where I kind of where I found that it was narcissism. Would you like me to talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, so the journey was, we were just to kind of give a quick summary. We were in New York City, so I was in New York City for a little over 17 years. We met there. We saved enough money to get out, move to the burbs, and again, this is one of those things where I thought, okay, once you move to the burbs, everything will be great, and it was, right. So, and then I once I was sober, I started to really just analyze and see what was happening around me and start to monitor my reactions, right? There are things that frankly there's a lot that you have taught me, and I'll get to you in a second, but I don't think I realized it, but I started to really understand my actions are my actions, hers are hers, starting to control my emotions a little bit, just in kind of unstructured ways. I started to just kind of improve myself and try to find ways forward, and nothing helped,
Hmm.
right? It would be helpful for me for a bit, but I ended up, moving out of our bedroom into our office. I was sleeping on the floor in the office, just to kind of keep the peace. I was constantly like leaving and going for walks and all these types of things. And then actually, it's about a year ago, up late one night, just feeling terrible. She had been, I don't know what she had been doing. She did so much, but maybe yelling at me or something. And I was in the middle of the night and I didn't even know the words. I just Googled wife spousal abuse.
Okay.
That's what I felt. I didn't even have the words, Renee. And that's where I found you. And I found I found your podcast and I started kind of going through and I honed in on an episode with Eleanor
Okay.
and I listened to it, and I was about to go to California for business. And so it was going to be a time away. And I just said, you know what? I think it was like I was kind of feeling in the dark. And I just was like, you know what? I think there's something here. There were things that you all were talking about that really resonated with me. And so I just took my credit card out and I booked time with Eleanor. And when I got to California, I got settled. I did a couple of my business meetings and then I met with her.
Yeah.
And I sat down and talked with her and I said, I think I'm married to a narcissist. Here's my story. And I laid it out. She confirmed. And then the next thing she said is, highly recommend the group.
Yeah.
And it was so wonderful because I felt so alone. I was so confused, and that's it, right? Like I sometimes I call my ex, and we're just waiting on the court, but we're very, 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 very close to being able to be finally divorced.
Mhm.
But my ex, I call her like the agent of chaos. right? Because that was a big part of her manipulating me, is just constantly keeping me confused.
So just to clarify, the group that you're talking about is the CNG group and the group
That's
session.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And it was so wild to, I got going back to that frame of mind, I literally was like, it was like I was in this dark cave. I don't know if I don't see if I can stretch this metaphor, but it was like just the tiniest thread was you and Eleanor and the information you were providing, and I just grabbed onto it. And when she advised I went to go to the CNG group, I just did it, right? And I really didn't really understand what I was getting into, and then being part of the group, it was amazing because we had people like from all over the world
We
that were
did.
in the group.
Mhm.
Yeah, but we all had these remarkably similar situations. I
They're
mean,
all the same
sometimes
stories. Yes.
it was wild. I mean, I felt so like, because when I would talk to my friends and family about what was happening, they would just say, "That's crazy. That's wild," and things like this. Why would she do this? Why would she do that? And then it would kind of end there, right? So being able to be in a group of other people who were experiencing the same thing, I mean, that alone was so cathartic and affirming.
Mhm.
And then of course when you were able to just help us like take these steps, right? So I was able to kind of pull that thread and take these one step at a time to understand and the truths about things, like accepting that I'm not going to change her,
Yeah.
right? Because that was a
Yeah.
big thing about what my, and I'd gotten to that point. My actions before, I thought I thought that the things I was going to do were going to make her happy. And then just understanding I'm not responsible for her happiness, and then, just some fundamental stuff that you taught us about, other people's actions of their actions, whether they're accountable or not, that's their responsibility.
Still on
We
them.
need to be
Mhm.
still on them,
Mm.
being able to separate, because that was the other thing too, is there was a bit of the codependency, and it was really driven by her. I really kind of pushed back on that kind of stuff, but being able to also like unwind, and be untethered from that kind of that codependency.
Mhm.
You helped with that as well, and then also the boundaries are for us. Understanding. I think I was trying to impose my boundaries on her, frankly, other people. But being able to just understand, like, no, that boundary is for me. That's a guidepost for me and how I'm going to handle certain situations and what I'm tolerant of and not tolerant of. And my goodness, it was like every session was just like I couldn't wait, and it helped.
Wow.
It helped
Well,
so much. Yeah.
I'm honored to have been on that journey with you and still on that journey with you, in ways, and have you here now, as part of your journey still sharing your story. So thank you. So these groups are mixtures of guys and women. We've got that combination in there. From a guy's perspective, I talk to a lot of women, in all of this, but from a guy's perspective, this is not a gender issue. Can you relate, to all the stories, even though this is me talking about my husband, but for you, it's you talking about your wife? But it doesn't matter. We're all still telling the same stories.
Right. And, yeah, I mean, I have a very progressive liberal arts education, right? So I understand that gender is a concept, right? It's a social concept. And I understand the difference between, a gender and sexuality, right? I'm in that group. I understand all those things. I would say that, but these things are still real, right? And, uh you know not to get too off subject, but the patriarchy is real, right?
Mhm.
And so, and as it's being upheld, and all these, these frankly toxic ideas of masculinity and things, as a man, I identify as a man. I'm a cis male, straight male. And I think I think the first thing is, like I said to you before, like I was so in the dark, and a lot of that was because of the way that our expectations from men and the way men, kind of deal with these types of things, right? So there was this inner conversation, I think, early on of, oh, I'm too strong, and then I would kind of prove my strength to myself in different ways, whether I'd be, overachieving at work, or working out a lot, or I don't know, whatever, being a coach for my kids. I don't know, these different ways that would kind of help me validate my own masculinity. But when it came to like being in the home, um, those ideas uh, really hindered my ability to kind of recognize the unbalance nature of our relationship,
Wow.
right? And so kind of going back to my mom, and this is another reason why I do think my mother really primed me for this, because it was her. I normalized the way she treated me. So when other people, especially people I was intimate with, or coupled with, would treat me like that, I didn't recognize it as bad. I didn't recognize it as toxic, right? And then there's this whole another layer of being a man and just tolerating things. So
Mm.
yeah, I as a and I'm sure these things happen to women as well. And certainly when the group we would hear it, right? There were women and people that were in relationships for a very long time, and it's because whatever we do, we gaslight ourselves into
And to
whatever
tolerate it.
to
Yeah. And to
tolerating it,
tolerate,
right?
not
And
only tolerating it, but blaming ourselves for it.
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, that would be like, I definitely, I mean, my mother's passed now, but I would definitely like, I might have mentioned a little bit of my issues with my wife to her, but there was going to be no help there. She would just blame me,
Wow. So she just
and
joined right in. Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
and I love hearing what you're saying, because your own, perspective of yourself as a guy brought to the table, and it actually hindered your ability. I like how you put it. It hindered your ability to recognize the imbalance in your relationship. And I love
Yeah.
the way you say that, because relationships with a covert narcissist are so out of balance. There is a
Oh yeah.
power imbalance, whether it be the guy or the girl. Like it's a power imbalance between a covert narcissist and their victim. And from a
Yeah.
woman's perspective, it was my perspective of me as a woman that hindered my ability to recognize the imbalance. And here you are voicing it from a guy's perspective. And I love that, because it's still the same power imbalance.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think my group, it was all women, right? I
Mhm.
was the one man in that particular group. And I know you had other men, and I think there were maybe some chats where there were some men, but that particular group. But my gosh, our the situations that we were in were. I mean, it was wild just how specifically exact they were.
Right.
Like I can remember this one thing about taxes, and I thought this thing that my ex had done regarding our taxes. I mean, I couldn't imagine that I was going to be in a group with somebody else, and they literally their spouse did the same exact thing, right?
Wow.
And this is a woman, and her male spouse is doing this, and I'm a man, and it's my female spouse doing it. So yeah, like you said, it's gender neutral. This
It is.
this
It truly is. Yes.
this problem here. Yeah.
So Todd, we're going to wrap this up, but tell me where you are now, like as a person. Like, what is life like for you now in this healing journey?
Yeah, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. And really, it's really to you and Eleanor, have helped me, so much, and given me so many tools to be able to, get out of the situation. So, yeah, I'm great. So we are, like I said, we actually, I just signed paperwork yesterday. She's already signed it, so it's been submitted to the courts. So we are going to be divorced. I know that some people, are, for whatever reason, find that they need to still live with their narcissist. That was untenable for me. Okay, so I moved out about 4 months ago. Now we're going to be completely divorced in a couple of weeks. But I'm good. And I think, to try to summarize it briefly, would be, I'm able to truly focus on the kids and myself without the specter of this, chaos person, just kind of mixing things up and so forth. So I'm able to have more of just a direct communication with them. My kids are 13 and 8. So they're young and sensitive and stuff to this, but we're doing great. They love my place, and we just take it easy together. And I think that I'm also very excited because I truly don't know what the future holds for me, um, and it's really exciting because I'm so happy. I really truly, and yeah, I've never been happier in my life. And it's been
Good.
able to, because of the divorce, but also I've been able to kind of reflect on the treatment of my mother. So I've really been able to resolve a lot of childhood trauma, as well
Good.
as, and as well as just really change my life. And now, I actually find that it's really nice being alone.
Good.
And it, yeah.
Good. Yeah, there's a big, big difference between being alone and being lonely. And to me, the
Yes,
loneliest place was within my own marriage.
absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. It was like I was cut off from the world at times, right? And now I can choose to engage in the world whenever I want.
Yes,
And there's many times where I'm just happy to just sit and read and just be in my place. And
and
it's
be
wonderful.
alone. Yeah, that's amazing. And I hope that you're finding, I tell people when they have young children, I tell people that, if you're still in the marriage and you're living with this, like you say, agent of chaos, that you might have 100% access to your children, but you're only able to be about 50% of you. Okay, because you have to spend so much of your time, energy, effort, mental capacity, emotional space caring for this agent of chaos, like trying to control the environment and all of this. And it's exhausting. And so you even add the layer of exhaustion to it. You just can't really be you. But now you have, if you divorce or you separate, you might only have 50% access to your children. But when you're with them, you are 100% you.
Absolutely. I love the way you put it. And that's exactly it. And it's okay.
Hmm.
It's okay that I'm not with them 100% of the time. And even then, look, they're at school, they're in activities,
Right.
right? They're out
They're going
playing
to
with their
have a life
friends.
of their own.
Right. So it's not like, yeah, it's not like when they're not at my place, they're just, not at all. And I'm not that far away. I'm only a 5-minute drive from the other house and where they are and things. But absolutely, I love how you put that.
So, Todd, we need to wrap this up, but I just want to know, do you have any words of hope out there for the men who are listening to this specifically?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's absolutely hope. It's absolutely there. You got to pursue it, but just one step at a time, and you'll get, and that will put you one step closer to your goal. So just take it easy, just move steadily towards the goal, and you'll get there. That's my
Okay.
recommendation.
I love it. I love it. Moving towards that goal, could you voice what that goal was for you? Like, how would you have worded what the goal was?
Um, yeah, it's just to just remove this burden, this weight, I that's the best way I can put it. It was just like there was just this extra weight on me all the time. And it was for me, it was my spouse.
Hmm.
And I was constantly worried. It affected everything I did. Everything I did was framed somehow around her, how she's going to react. And
Yeah.
so just being able, the goal was to just take that out. And she wasn't going to remove it herself. She wasn't going to stop. So then I recognize, well, then I need to do something so that I can get help to get that out of my life.
Okay, good for you. Well put. So, Todd, it's such a pleasure to see you again. And thank you for sharing your story here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, all right, to my audience there, I wish you all, a beautiful day, and I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast. If you are struggling with covert narcissism in your life, I help people to heal from covert narcissistic abuse. If you are struggling with the isolation, the self-doubt, and the obsessive thinking, then this is the program for you. I offer both group and individual options. This is live, personalized coaching that is specific to covert narcissism. Reach out to me anytime. You can find me at my website, covertnarcissism.com. I'm not a therapist and you are not a victim. I am a coach and you are a survivor. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson and the Covert Narcissism podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. It does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.